I'm all about starting on time. It's 11 o'clock. It's 11:01 actually. And I'm going to check with the city clerk to see if we can go ahead and call the meeting to order.
Yes, ma'am. We're ready to rock and roll.
All right. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. And then, Erica, how do you want to do the attendance?
In this environment, I can easily take attendance by checking the participants online as individuals join. So that'd probably be the easiest. If you all see that I missed you in the minutes, we can update it at any given time. Just let me know.
Okay. And what I would like to do is, because many of you are new faces to me, some of them aren't. I'm new faces to many of you all. Just to do some brief introductions before we get into the approval of the minutes. I'm Tina Herbert, and Councilwoman, I think I'm supposed to say that, Councilwoman Tina Herbert. And I used to be city staff, y'all, so Missy knows that I struggle with this whole title thing. But I actually volunteered to work with the Affordable Housing Task Force because it is, the issue is very important to me. What a lot of folks do not know is that growing up, my mother had a Section 8 voucher. And so when I tell people say what neighborhood you're from, they hear, oh, I grew up there. Oh, I was there. Oh, I was there. And it wasn't until this campaign that even I began to see that the reason that I lived in so many different neighborhoods was because my mom had a Section 8 voucher and she preferred to live in houses. And so we lived in Meadow Lakes. We lived in Greenview many years. We lived in Lincolnshire. We lived in Seminary Ridge. The campaign process was actually very interesting to me because it helped me kind of understand that path. And then I went to law school. And I had this little girl, this little chickie named Asada, my baby, and actually lived in public housing in Raleigh, North Carolina, in Chavis Heights, which is the exact floor plan of Allen Benedict Court, like exact floor plan. And Chavis Heights is now gone. But I had the blessed fortune of waiting 3 years. I waited 3 years to get into public housing because that's how long the wait list was. And then I made high cotton when after a year in public housing, in my 4th year, I got my Section 8 voucher in Raleigh, North Carolina, and got to move into some apartments. And I was telling someone recently, I really felt safer in the public housing, I really did, than the apartment complex because we had the police station really close and I was really, near the office. But it was a very good experience for me because I was in law school and had a 4-year-old. No, was she 2-year? Don't tell her I didn't know. But the key thing was I wouldn't have been able to finish law school very seriously if I had to worry about paying rent, real rent, because we couldn't work our first year. And I remember my law school folks, one of my law school friends who had, just a regular old apartment, he got evicted. And you know where he had to come and sleep on the couch for like 2 months? He had to come over to Tina's Section 8 apartment and stay on the couch because he couldn't afford the payments. And I said, you all kind of see why I made the decisions that I made because I really needed to focus on school. And then I also tell people, and I'm not in the least bit ashamed about it because I promise you in my taxes, I have paid the government back every single penny that they have ever invested in me. And I do think that it was an investment at a critical time for me. So for those reasons, having affordable housing is very important to me. And for the reasons that people seem to think that I don't look like Section 8 is another reason why affordable housing is important to me. Because every time I tell that story or say something, folks are like, well, Tina, we're not talking about you. Because during the campaign, I really got a lot of pushback on affordable housing, a lot of pushback. And I would, and they, we would say, well, we want new development, but we don't want Section 8 vouchers. And then I had to say, oops, I had a Section 8 voucher. And then the next thing would be, well, now, Tina, we're not talking about you. We're talking about everybody else. I said, no, but you are talking about me. So that really, that is one of the bigger, I have some personal reasons why I understand the need for affordable housing, and the difference that it can make in people's lives. So that's why I volunteered for what is probably going to be, y'all are going to help make it one of the easiest jobs, I'm sure. But I wanted to give you all that background so you can kind of understand what you're dealing with. And so my perspectives are probably a little different than most, but they're real perspectives of what I have experienced. And I don't have to ask anybody about what that experience was like. And so I'm glad to be here. I'm grateful to be here. And I would like to get an introduction from each of you, just 1 or 2 minutes really quickly, who you are and why you're here. And we'll go from there. And I'm just going to start with the next person on my screen, which is Miss Anita Floyd, who has known me since I was a babe, I think. Hi, Miss Anita.
How are you, ma'am? I am pleased to be here joining this team. I have spent most of my career working on issues of homelessness and housing, starting with the women's shelter, where I got to develop housing for homeless women. And of course, at United Way, 15 years of working with my lovely colleague, Jennifer, to do lots of things, not just planning on homelessness, but also a big education, I think, for me was when we did the flood recovery, because we had worked on rental housing, and it was really distressing to see the quality of the home ownership, that people really, it was an asset, but really it was a liability. And that's why I'm here, just to continue to do that. I'm at Mercy now, which is, another opportunity to be working on these very same issues that I have embraced my whole career. And it's good to see so many colleagues, because I've worked with all of y'all for a long time.
Glad to have you, Miss Anita. Who's next? Okay, no takers. I'll take the next one on my screen is Julie Ann Avon.
Hey, I'm Julie Ann Avon. I'm with Mercy, and I started here when I was a child. I've been here for 31 years. And Mercy started out as a program to support individuals in the community that had been diagnosed with a serious mental illness, and to assist people in kind of acclimating back into the community after a major hospitalization. And when I started in the 90s, that acclimation was a lot of people showing up at the center each day with their bags of belongings that they couldn't keep with them when they were in the shelter. So they would bring them and tuck them under the staircase and stay with us during the day, and then go back to the Salvation Army in the evening. So we started in the early to mid 90s developing housing, and we really missed the old Section 811 program for developing housing for people with disabilities, because we could develop it and have the rent support, project rental assistance contract attached, so that it would always be affordable for individuals with disabilities. So it's over the years going from the Section 8 housing, the Section 811, and now into the continuum of care housing for homeless individuals. But I think where we are at this point is looking for new avenues for development of housing. As I said, the 811 program has completely changed. We would love to have involvement with Columbia Housing Authority to pursue that in the future. We requested that 2 years ago. The program has changed now, so the private nonprofit can't just apply for the 811. It has to be a housing authority, and our Department of Mental Health is very willing to put up some matching money for it. So I hope we can see that come to fruition. Otherwise, like with the continuum of care money, we're really kind of just at a place of renewing all of the existing projects each year. It's not like HUD's putting a lot of new money out there for new housing, and even that is not development. That means we've got to find a property that meets the fair market rent, and that we feel not only that it passes housing quality inspection, but also for us safety. We don't like to put anybody in a multifamily complex where we wouldn't be comfortable living ourselves.
Welcome, Julianne.
Thank
Next,
you.
I have Ms. Sue Berkowitz.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sue Berkowitz, and I'm with South Carolina Advocacy Legal Justice Center. We're a multi-issue organization that works on legal issues that impact the low-wealth community. Obviously, housing is a huge issue. We often look at it from the perspective of how do we keep people in their housing, as well as conditions, and are always hearing folks who are both in need of housing as well as facing eviction. And so one of the things that we've been really looking at and focusing on with some of the other providers is how do we make the process a fairer, more open process in getting people the representation that they need. And so I'm really excited to be working with all of you again. Obviously, if we increase the availability of affordable housing, that makes it the need for protecting people from eviction not quite as much, but it's always something. It's definitely a balance, and we have to be thinking of it from. Oh, sorry, my lights go out when I don't move too much. That we need to be thinking about not only how do we develop it, but how do we make sure that people who have housing are able to maintain it.
Welcome, Ms. Sue. Next, I have Jim. And Jim, I'm not going to mess up your last name.
I won't let you. I'll let you off the hook. Jim Zeke, I'm a retired recycling and solid waste manager that retired to Columbia after stints up in Ohio. Wanted to be warm again. I represent More Justice. It's an organization of over 26 churches with an average weekly church attendance of 15,000 people. We advocate for those people that don't have a voice, and we firmly believe that we can make a difference by raising our voices and advocating for affordable housing. We're also working on group violence and mental illness.
Thank you. My mom is a member of Reed Chapel and very active with More Justice.
Oh, very good, very good. We're very familiar with Reed Chapel. Our office is out at Reed Chapel.
Okay. Welcome, Jim. The next person I have is, and I didn't bring my reading glasses, if y'all can tell, Reggie Barner.
Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity. I guess for me, I'm retired after 30 years in the public housing Section 8 world, worked in several different cities in South Carolina. And once I retired, I served as an interim up in Spartanburg and in Greenville, and continued to do consulting work within the Southeast on affordable housing development, working with, primarily now working with housing agencies, housing authorities, as well as high net worth individuals that are still looking to do affordable housing, targeting individuals at 80% of AMI or below. And so I don't really do or consult much on market rate, even though some of it is a mixture, and then advocate for policy changes at the state, local, and federal levels. A lot of the work that we need to do and should be doing affects local government, state government, and federal government. And so a lot of the work that I'm doing now is trying to help communities and boards advocate for policy changes and see how I can be of value there. That's kind of why I'm serving on this committee. I live in Aiken now, originally from Greenville, but have done work all over the state.
Well, welcome, Mr. Reggie from Aiken. And then next we have Miss Yolanda Bean.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of the Affordable Housing Task Force. My name is pronounced Yolanda. It is spelled with a Y. It always confuses people. So I'm so used to getting Yonda, Yolanda, just you name it. It's never Yolanda, but it's Yolanda. I am the interim CEO for Columbia Housing and KC Housing, representing approximately 6,500 families. We administer major programs such as public housing and the Housing Choice Voucher Program, more commonly known as Section 8. I am the interim, as I indicated, CEO. I've been in this role now for 90 days tomorrow. Super excited, new to the position, but certainly not new to the industry. I've been in the industry for over 20 years. I actually got my start in Aiken, South Carolina, under the leadership of Reggie Barner, who happens to still be a mentor of mine. Interestingly enough, my career started as a resident services part-time, a part-time assistant to the resident services program. So I worked directly with the residents to deliver different social service programs and supports that they needed. But it started again as a part-time position, but it wasn't long after my potential was realized by Mr. Barner that the position became full-time. And then I had the pleasure of advancing and working in almost every department within the agency, which has been fantastic for advancing my career. I am a product of generational poverty. Affordable housing is something that is very near and dear to my heart. I'm passionate about it, knowing what it means to have safe, quality housing. And so this is my life's work. And I've had the pleasure of doing it not only in South Carolina, but also in Ohio, Mr. Ziki, for 4 years, where I actually oversaw HUD Section 202 and HUD's Section 811 program. So I'm very familiar with that program and look forward to discussing potential partnership opportunities with you, Julie. And I also worked in Louisiana last for 3 years for an organization that had been under HUD receivership for 5 years prior to my joining. Was able to transform the agency within a couple of years, actually satisfying the terms of HUD's agreement at that time within record-breaking time. So I'm super proud of the work that I, along with my team, did there. And then Ivory actually reached out to me in June of 2019 to ask me if I would consider joining her team here. At that time, she was considering the position as CEO for Columbia Housing. She's since moved on to Portland, Oregon, where she's overseeing the largest housing authority in Oregon. And so we're super excited and proud of her as well. But that's a little bit about me in a nutshell. I'm glad to be here and looking forward to working with you all and lending my expertise and gleaning from you all as well.
Well, welcome, Miss Yolanda. I've got it right. Next, I have Miss Jennifer Moore.
All right, morning, everybody. It's great to be here. Jennifer Moore, I work at United Way. I'm Vice President of Community Impact, so I oversee our community work. So we are a collaborator and investor around homelessness and housing. This past year, we were really fortunate to partner with a private foundation out of Ohio. We have a trend here this morning called the Zimmer Institute, where we're doing 2-generation approach work now. So that's a new thing for us. So it is working with families that are facing homelessness to address generational poverty, to increase income, workforce development skills, and then have that 2-generation approach for wraparound services with the children in the family as well. So that's a new thing we're doing. We're very excited to share with y'all. The other quick tidbit, we did announce this at our CEO Association meeting last week, and we're working on a more formal public announcement. But we were a very generous recipient of a Mackenzie Scott gift, and our board has approved us using half of that towards affordable housing. So we're looking for capacity building investments, capital investments, and innovative projects, things that prevent evictions. So eviction prevention pilots, heirs property we're very interested in. So would love to talk to anybody. We will start those conversations very soon. So great to be here. Thanks, everybody.
Glad to have you, Jennifer. Next, I have Brianna Bernardin.
Good morning. My name is Brianna Bernardin, and I'm with Fast Forward. We are a nonprofit that works kind of parallel to housing. So we work in training and employment for individuals who are in the Midlands area who are low income and homeless. And a little bit about me, I am currently working on my doctorate through the Medical College of Wisconsin with a focus on affordable housing, specifically in South Carolina.
Thank you, Ms. Brianna. And then we have Ms. Lila Anna Sauls.
I'm laughing because you got it right. I was like, okay, Tina, is it going to be LA? And it will be LA eventually. So I'm Lila Anna Sauls, and I am with Homeless No More. So I have been with Homeless No More for 18 years in the nonprofit sector for over 30. Started out at St. Lawrence Place, which was our transitional shelter for at-risk and homeless families with children. In 2015, we rebranded to Homeless No More and took on emergency services, otherwise known as family shelter here in town. Took a trip to an organization called Homefront in New Jersey and decided that it was going to become a system of care for families. So we start with emergency. Second step is transitional, St. Lawrence Place. We then added affordable housing development. So went out, got a few national certifications, added a doctorate along the way. We now build affordable housing from the ground up. We also rehab, and within the next 3 years, we'll have 200 units scattered throughout Richland and Lexington counties. We also have recently added a home ownership component because the only way to build generational wealth is through home ownership. So over the next 6 months, you will see the addition of houses within communities that are historic and want to keep the families who have been born and raised in those areas. So the fifth piece of our puzzle is advocacy at the state and national level. We saw during COVID especially, most of the issues that we knew existed kind of put under a magnifying glass. So education, wage equity, food security, affordable housing, everything that touches the families. We are a holistic approach. We have education programs, we have life skill programming. So becoming a voice for systemic change. We have never believed in Band-Aids, still don't believe in Band-Aids. So taking on a more visible role. We've always been behind the scenes, but kind of stepping out front per se, as we continue to tackle the other issues. So that is Homeless No More, and what I've been doing for the past 18 years, kind of in a nutshell.
Glad to have you, Miss Lila Anna. So I don't do nicknames well. It's one of those rules I had growing up. So
no, it's actually interesting because it's not a nickname; it's laziness. So I'm like, I appreciate it.
I did not say that. You did. And so the last person I have, I hope this is correct, is Chris Zimmer. And Erica, you let me know if there are other people I can't see, but I think that's it.
Well, good morning. Yep, still morning. Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here. Hopefully, maybe sometime we can get together in person. We've got a lot of very influential names on the group here and look forward to getting to know you all a little bit more. My name is Chris Zimmer. I serve as the market president for Truist Bank here in the Midlands. Truist, formerly BB&T. We merged with SunTrust a couple years ago at this point, but all the branding is now done. So I'm our market president for the center part of the state. I also spent a lot of time working with the Columbia Chamber. I'm on the executive committee of the Columbia Chamber. So wearing a few different hats that understand how critical affordable housing and homelessness in general is to the Midlands community. Personally, I spent many years on the board of the family shelter, long time ago, but that was my first experience with a problem, and was introduced to it and devoted a good bit of my time to supporting the family shelter back in the somethings. So personally passionate about making a meaningful change to our great community. From the bank standpoint, we understand how critical a stable home is to a community, and again, same from the chamber side. So really coming from a few different places, but all three places very clearly understand how important affordable housing is to having a vibrant community. So looking forward to seeing how I can help, either personally with the bank's resources or the chamber's resources. Looking forward to helping this group.
Thank you, Chris. I'm glad to have you. And Erica, I'm gonna let you go through the names, because what I just realized is clearly my screen is not large enough to show me everyone.
All right.
So yeah, let's keep going as quickly as possible, because I think this part is important, at least for me, y'all, because I don't know everybody. So this is helpful.
Yes, ma'am. So in addition to a handful of city staff, we have Ms. Shayla Riley, Pamela Reid from the Comment, and Dylan Gunnels. So if those three could round out the introductions.
Hello, everyone, and I'm sorry I sound like this. I had my wisdom tooth pulled yesterday, so I'm all puffy, so you might not want to see me today. But I'm Shayla Riley. I'm with Coldwell Banker Realty, Midtown office, which is on Gervais. I did do a small development called D8 Swinton Point, which was behind Benedict College, which caught the attention of the Affordable Housing Task Force. Excuse me. So it's been very exhilarating to be able to be part of it. I'm a hometown girl. I was born and raised here in Columbia. Been doing real estate about 20 years. And I'm also a board member at the Sales and Marketing Commission for the Builders Association. So my job is to help bridge a gap between residential builders and this committee, so that we can make sure and try to make sure that, the builders are aware that they can build plans that can be market rate and affordable. So that's why I'm here.
Glad to have you, Ms. Shayla.
Good morning. I'm Pamela Reid. I'm the Director of Marketing and Community Affairs for the Comment. And as I'm sure everyone on this call understands, that if someone needs affordable housing, then they probably need transportation too. So one of the things that we're trying to make sure that we do, especially with our Reimagine the Comment program, which basically looks at our routes and makes sure that we're in the places that we need to go and that we're as efficient as possible. We try to make sure that, with the new affordable housing complexes coming up, that transportation is part of that discussion, and that we're able to make sure that we serve the people in those neighborhoods. Thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Pamela. And then I think Dylan is the last person.
Hey, Tina, Councilman Herbert. It's good to see you and everybody here. I'm glad that we're able to gather again. My name is Dylan Gunnels. I'm the Executive Director at Haven Home, housing justice nonprofit focused on scattered housing. And so our goal is to purchase and renovate single-family homes and offer them at affordable rates on a case-by-case basis, as well as offering social programming that helps the individual residents move into that self-sufficiency and eventually home ownership. I'm very excited to say that our offering is finally complete with the attorneys, and so we'll be able to go public with that in 30 days. So I'll be able to start telling you about the properties that we've actually purchased and renovated and the residents that we're actually serving. So we've come a long way in a year, and I'm very excited. And so what got me into this space, I guess, is twofold. One, I have never been homeless or never experienced extreme poverty, but when I first moved to Columbia, I had absolutely nothing. So I know that experience of all of my furniture being donated and duct taping windows to keep the air out and gunshots 2 apartments over, and I can relate to that. And so taking that experience and then moving into the pandemic when we started Mutual Aid Midlands and started working with folks that were making those decisions about, paying their rent or putting food on the table, and they were on the verge of eviction, didn't know what to do. And it kind of led me on this rabbit trail of housing and learning all the things that most of you all have been doing for much longer than me. So I admit that, but it took me on many rabbit trails, and I started to realize how interconnected this issue was. And then I've just been a nonprofit my whole life. I started in case management and fell into development and professional fundraising. And those connections led me to Lauren, who founded Haven Home. And those two passions collided, and I've been here for a year now. So looking forward again to telling you all that we're able to accomplish now that the offering is here. So thank you so much. And Jennifer, I'll be giving you a call too to learn more about what funding you have. So thank you.
Glad to have you here, Dylan. He's also my constituent, so even more special for me. So yeah, thank you so much for indulging me, just so I can have a better idea of everyone here. I did want to move through, and we're perfect. Our timing is going to be perfect, I think, with the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of October 12, 2021 and December 14, 2021?
Motion made to approve both sets of minutes.
Second.
So it's been moved and properly second. Is there any discussion on the minutes? I will tell you all that I am going to vote nay, but I'm voting nay because I wasn't here and I wasn't a part of the group. So not that I have any problems with it. It's just that I can say yes. If there being no questions, Ms. Erica, can you call the roll for us?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay, one.
Yes, ma'am. Duly noted. Thank you.
All right. So one of the reasons that I also wanted to make sure that I worked with this committee is because I did watch the meetings last year. And I wanted to make sure that this crew of people who have been meeting actually since 2020, that we have some type of closure and or new beginning, however we decide to make it. But before, because there are a couple of different recommendations out there, just so you all know. And I felt that we needed to honor the work that has been done. And so that's why we have the committee reports on here today. And really, I don't need anything really fancy, but what I do want each of you to do is just give me an idea of what decisions and or issues you have decided to address, and then what you would want to do going forward. And it may be, we don't need to go forward with this one, Tina. After this long period of time we decided, but I do just kind of want to get an input of what you've accomplished and what you think the committee could accomplish going forward. And if you're thinking maybe not, then that's fine to say that as well. And I'm a real transparent person, but I just kind of want to get input. And then after we go through those pretty quickly, we'll look at a path forward. And so the first one I have on here is the Accessibility Committee with Ms. Julianne.
All right, thank you. The Accessibility Committee met a couple of times, I think it was in 2020. And what we were predominantly coming up with is that we need to utilize universal accessibility standards. And I think, for the most part, when we're talking accessibility, we are talking individuals that are needing senior living, people with disabilities, perhaps individuals that have mobility challenges, and those things can all fall under a universal accessibility standard. And there also was discussion around accessible housing for individuals that were coming out of incarceration. frankly, I think that's probably more of a public policy issue than it is an accessibility issue. It has to do with, background checks, and I think that probably doesn't necessarily fall under the accessibility standard. We didn't get a whole lot of traction, in all honesty. I think we spent most meetings I was on trying to decide how we were going to define affordable or attainable housing.
Okay, and so going forward, is this something that could be, because I do like the need, or at least that conclusion of a use for a universal accessibility standard. Is this maybe something, this particular committee, if we draft that particular statement to put in a particular place that we'll figure out where it's going to go, in a report of some nature, do you think that there's more to do after that? Or is that a part of this bigger picture that we're doing?
I think my suggestion would be that the city make a commitment to any development that the city's going to be involved in, whether it's through this task force or a city department or division. I think there should be a commitment to developing housing that meets universal accessibility standards. And, past that, I think each individual developer should know how to implement using those standards in developing housing.
I like that. Anybody else have any comments on that? Perfect.
I'd offer that if you're using any federal money, there are guidelines that you have to follow. That it's not up for conversation, even for a rehab.
Okay. Next is the Finance Committee with Mr. Reggie Barner.
Okay, so we had a lot of topics that we've talked about over the last couple of years, but as you all know, that there's ever moving target, if you will, around affordable housing issues from a funding standpoint. And one in particular that really everybody's put their focus on statewide right now has been related to the state tax credit program, as well as the bond program under the 4% program. And so while there's a lot of issues that's being addressed right now in the Senate and in the House, they've come to some resolutions regarding that from a dollar amount standpoint. But that's still on the state level, and there's a lot of development, whether Yolanda's working on projects locally in Columbia, as well as other nonprofit or private developers are working on projects. So I think we still need to address some issues from a development standpoint. I think more specifically locally, Columbia has one of the largest or highest taxes in property tax in the state, and that prevents from an affordability issue. So I think as part of what we tackle this year is to address, I know the mayor's talked about that and other members of council have talked about that as well. And so I do think that at some point as a committee, we need to begin to have some dialogue around the whole tax abatement issue or the incentive. Council passed a couple of years ago, and I was part of that task force prior to this task force being done. I was a part of that group working with City Council to help get that legislation drafted and passed that focused on incentives for affordable housing development, but it really hasn't gone anywhere. And I know that it has to be a collaboration between the city and the county. But I do think we need to put some teeth behind that and have some more deliberate discussion around that, as well as there's another piece of legislation statewide that also has benefit locally, and that's regarding, for lack of a better word, is focus on inclusionary housing, where developers would be required to make a certain percentage of housing that they develop affordable. And I know that there's some state legislation, but that may be something locally to have continued conversation around as well. So that's kind of where we are. And so I think there's a tremendous opportunity. And then I also know that there's been some discussion around a local housing trust fund as well. So I think we have some opportunity, but if anybody else has anything else to add to that, those would be the initial focuses that I think we can begin with for this year.
Well, and I actually do have a couple of things, depending upon your time, Mr. Barner, because Miss Ivana spoke so highly of you. So the city does have the tax modernization committee that is strictly dealing with that issue. And so I'm going to allow them to deal with that issue because they have a full committee just on that. Okay. But I think it is important for us to have a liaison who is aware. And so I don't know if your time will allow, but I would love to ask Mr. Taylor if you could be our representative on that committee. And I like the fact that you brought it up. Like, it's not me saying, but I can tell that that's something you have an interest in. Sure. Can I make that suggestion to him? Can I offer you up for our representative?
Sure. And Joe and I worked together before on a state board. So I've worked with Joe for a long time. So
okay, that's perfect. And then with respect to the inclusionary housing, that was a recommendation. I started trying to read all of this stuff, but that was a recommendation back in, was it 2005, 2007? I need to see why there's not been any action on it. And I actually just got a call from someone yesterday saying, asking me about the tax abatement. They were like, y'all, you implemented the ordinance, but it's just been sitting there. And so folks are starting to ask that. So it does sound like there's a whole lot for the finance committee to be actively involved in. And I like to hear that. So, but I'm gonna see Joe today and I'm gonna put you in his ear. Anybody else have any input? Oh, and in the housing trust, that is a question that I need to discuss because way back in my day at the city, we funded the Midlands Housing Trust. And then I want to make sure that we're not creating another housing trust because from my nonprofit days, that just sounds like a lot more overhead or, can all of these things kind of work together? But the funding is the big issue, regardless of, it's all about the dollars that can be put in there. Anybody else have anything to add besides all of my comments? All right, so next I have legal and zoning with Miss Lila, Anna, and Miss Sue.
So I'll segue quickly into the inclusionary because that was on my list as far as inclusionary zoning, which works really well in Charleston and is at the state house level and just never has picked up traction here. When I think about this committee, there are pages and pages of zoning ordinances, and it's kind of what Julianne said about what is policy versus. I never quite saw this committee. Our need was not. We should not be looking at the city's zoning ordinances and coming back to this committee and saying, here's the pro and con of this. So I would prefer it being more of it would be great if we could figure out inclusionary zoning and then work to further that agenda, which may be in tandem with finance or something. Again, it's at the State House. It was not picking up a lot of traction at the end of, or as we near the end of session. The other just food for thought of all of this is as you look on this Zoom screen, we're missing a for-profit developer. And what you will hear me yell at the top of my lungs is, I'm a certified developer, but I still need a Kevin Connolly to build it. Just like Columbia Housing, needs a Kevin Conley to build it, just like the city of Columbia needs a Mungo or a Connolly. They do have a voice in this conversation. And if we want hundreds of units built, they're going to give us I don't want to look up and find us in an echo chamber per se. And the state Affordable Housing Task Force is a pretty good mix. Like I'm looking at these names, and I'm thinking a lot of us are on that task force with a handful of. So I do think we might need to add a for-profit because we have to have them to build it. It's a partnership. That's kind of where I fall on the zoning. I mean, I can tell you where the issues are, but it's not anything that we need to take up as a task force. The other thing that I'm not real sure where it fits in our conversation is, and I can point to Haven Home. So the condemned properties around town are being scooped up by venture capitalists in huge numbers. So how do we access these condemned and slated for demolition properties? How do we?
I'm gonna send you the list, but go
send
ahead.
me the list. And how do we go? How do we flip these properties, save them for the neighborhoods, and turn them into true affordable housing? And and let me be very clear when I say Haven Home and venture capitalist, I don't care who does it. I just want it to be true affordable housing. I just know that in our neighborhood, the minute we announced our plans, it's gentrification, and we're like, no, we've been here for 30 years. It's not gentrification. But I do think that list of, I think it's over 200 right now, properties. One title search is about $900. So if you're not a venture capitalist or someone who's got the backing of, it's really hard to track down who owns it and then pay what they want, which is usually a ridiculous amount of money. So that is something that to make the most of these properties throughout the city, I think we probably need to look at.
Well, and just before Sue goes, so I just sent you that list, and I can share the list with everyone. I will tell you that is on my radar, and at every neighborhood meeting I go to, I give them the list. That's because I said, I'm pretty sure a whole bunch of other people had this list, and I need you all to know what's going on in your communities. What I am realizing is that people, particularly in my district, don't have a clue, okay, how to do it, and I don't have the capacity, okay,
correct,
to help them. And so that is an area of interest of mine. And what I try and explain to people is you may not be able to afford it, but 3 or 4 of your neighbors, maybe y'all get together, and that even if you rent it out, you're going to make sure that they're the right kind of tenants and that they fit in the neighborhood, and you're going to help them out if they need help. So that is the issue that, but that's what I've been doing, is letting at least people, because we're watching it happen, and as opposed to watching it happen, at least have the opportunity.
And then the last thing that I told you I was going to say, and I said I didn't know where I was going to put it on this agenda, but I'm going to say it. Here it goes. So if you look at Northside community in Spartanburg and the success of that area, it is not a neighborhood, it is a community, because their neighborhoods are a little bit larger than ours. It worked because of community navigators. NeighborWorks has a training where you take the community representatives, your people who have been there, who have a stake in that area, and they're at the table as you design what's going on around them. So they understand the construction, and they're part of the planning process, and it's not seen as gentrification, and it's not seen as a venture capitalist coming in or a nonprofit that they know. So there are trainings available.
We'll make sure, and I don't want to cut you off though.
No, I just know.
But I wrote that down because I want to see it, and I've gotten your messages, but I do want to make sure we get in Sue and 2 more people. And then because I usually do have a 12 o'clock meeting.
No, it's fine, but I had to say that out loud.
Yeah, I got
the community navigators they've got to be key as we solve this crisis.
Okay. Miss Sue.
Okay. Oh, I'm already off mute. We legal and zoning got kind of pushed together because nobody was really interested in either of them. And so we've never really met as a committee. And so I would, if we're going to stay together as a task force, think about how do we restructure those issues so that we have a way to really meaningfully work through the issues versus trying to make them maybe fit where they don't fit quite right together. And so for legal issues, as I mentioned, one of the things that we worry about is that when people do have housing, what happens to them when they're faced or when they're in jeopardy of losing that housing. Now, it could be for foreclosure, but very much so in the city of Columbia, eviction is a huge issue. Mm-hmm. And we know that especially in certain parts of Columbia, especially the St. Andrews area, we have some of the highest levels of eviction for medium-sized area, the highest level of eviction for medium-sized areas. And so one of the things that we've been looking at, because South Carolina Advocacy is a statewide group, is we've been looking at how do we meaningfully give a right to counsel to individuals who are facing eviction. I mean, I'd like to see right to counsel anytime somebody's losing their housing, similar to what we see when somebody's faced with a criminal charge. That is, expensive and probably not realistic without a state change. But one of the things that we've seen is how housing courts and eviction courts have worked very, very well in other parts of the country, also in other parts of the state. And Advocacy, we've written a grant to try to bring an attorney in, and we'll know hopefully this week through Equal Justice Works to try to do that for Richland County area, which of course Columbia is part of, because the eviction court system is part of the county system, as well as looking at some of the court rules and the way things are happen to people when they're going through eviction, so that we can even the playing field. But it's not just, okay, we're going to give tenants an attorney and we know that often landlords have one, but what it does is it maybe solves the issue before it ever gets to court. And we start looking at evictions in a different way, so that we're not looking at evictions as a collection matter, but we're looking at evictions as, well, if somebody does have to duct tape their window, as Dylan said, that's a problem, because how do you afford your rent if it's all going to Dominion, which already has high rates? So I would love for this task force to be looking at those issues, and hopefully we bring other folks on. And if we have an attorney that will be doing this with our office, we would offer that attorney part of their time to be a part of putting that whole project together, so that it can help with mitigating the problems of eviction and maybe eventually foreclosure for people in the Columbia environment.
Sounds good. All righty. Next, we have the Partnership Committee with Ms. Jennifer Moore.
Hey, everybody. So about a year and a half ago, I believe, we merged or started jointly meeting with the Community Education Committee. So I think Brenna is on if we wanted to provide any updates. We did talk about having a Storytellers Bureau. I guess from my perspective, and again, I don't want to speak for Brenna and her group, but what we've always seen, especially with the Partnership Committee and Community Education, is that we're the kind of the folks to go out there and make the asks when there is a clear plan from the full committee or the individual committees. And so when we need to deploy education efforts or partnership efforts around specific things that the group is recommending, that's where we would kick in. So So I can say I've been delinquent, and the portion of the partnership committee has not gotten together in a little while. And we've lost a couple members from moving jobs or moving out of the area. So that's kind of where we are, but I would defer to Brenna for the rest of the update. And then just real quick, kind of unrelated to the committee, I just did want to echo Councilwoman Herbert, your comments about the Housing Trust Fund. We helped create the Midlands Housing Trust Fund here at United Way, and we are very sensitive to the idea of having two trust funds with overhead for two different organizations. So we do hope if there is an effort to create another trust fund, or really we just want financing and money and resources to go into a housing trust fund. We just want that to be the most efficient as possible as far as overhead and staffing and things like that. So
I'll jump.
Brenna is here. Okay.
I am.
Oh, yeah.
I'll say I'll jump in real quick and just say I think it would be great to continue to merge with Jennifer and the partnership committee. We do have a small outreach list that we've put together as a joint committee. And then moving forward, we were waiting for some ideas and goals from the committee in general before we go out into the community with partnerships and come up with some asks to work together.
Okay. Any other topics, or is there anything else that maybe wasn't a committee that anyone is thinking that might be something I'm overlooking? Okay.
Well,
oh, go ahead, Dylan, go ahead.
Well, I do think, and I think all of us at the table here are aware of what I'm going to say, but I do think that when we're having this overarching conversation about housing affordability, we need to be talking about those large scale investors. We need to be talking about the folks that are swooping in and purchasing at a rapid level that is manipulating the market, that is pushing people out, that is purchasing properties for cash. We're starting to see minor pieces of legislation that can help combat that. We're seeing some neighborhood associations and homeowners associations coming together and saying that they want to be more involved in the process and keeping that from happening. So I just don't want to neglect that part of the conversation when we're talking about affordability.
No, and I think that's critical. And if we could find a way to give them the tools, people who aren't necessarily in everyday real estate and those issues, giving them a plan or 1, 2, 3 or a seminar one-on-one, I think that would be very helpful, plus some financing.
I just want a second. I'm sorry. Excuse me again for my throat. I second what he just said, especially on the builder side too. So there needs to be some more communication with the Builders Association, because we have builders who are selling lots to hedge funds before the house even gets out of the ground. There's one particular neighborhood where they sold 25 lots to an investor. I cannot tell you what that does to the pricing of the neighborhood. I cannot tell you what it does to the quality of the neighborhood. But it's, to me, borderline blockbusting, or monopolizing, where they can come in, buy all of these homes, and most of them from the 200 and 300 range, which is now the median for Columbia purchasing power. So with the interest rates going up, the average median, I can't find a 4-bedroom home under 260 very easily. So when we're talking about this, we have to also change the builders' minds on what people need, because people really don't, of the millennial buyer pool, that's in that affordable price range where they're maybe just coming out of college, have a state job, they only make maybe $50,000, $60,000 a year. That is now considered affordable housing. So I can't find homes for those people. And so we're having a talent retention problem where people are leaving Columbia after graduation to go to other cities where maybe they can't afford the housing more because they're getting paid more. So I think, I haven't had anybody from the task force reach out to me about communicating with the Builders Association, but I do think it's very, very important that the builders themselves hear the kind of models and floor plans that people can have versus these big 5-bedroom, 3.5 box homes that just, my generation, we're just not buying like that, and they're really expensive. So maybe, doing more vertical development, more townhomes, things such as that in areas where we can. I think that would be appealing to them if they knew that maybe they had the city support. Because building is so expensive now. If they're going to build it, then they should build it for more people.
All right. Well, yeah, this has been very, very helpful. I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking about doing. First of all, I want to go down to the last agenda item, number 4. Is this a good meeting time for everyone if we can keep it to an hour? If we do it monthly. Okay. And I will try and do an in-person meeting, but it'll be a minute because schedules are kind of crazy. The last thing is going to the discussion of our work plan. Do you all mind if I take this information and what I've heard today, that I send you a survey so that you all kind of help me prioritize the issues? Because my ultimate goal is for us to come up with 3 things. Usually 3 is just a good solid number of what we know we ourselves can actually do, accomplish, or recommend for the city. And we kind of divide that from advocacy issues, because there's so many different issues. But is that okay if I kind of get those questions together? And if y'all think I'm missing something, just let me know. But to kind of formulate that discussion, and so that when we come back the next time, we'll have those results and we can kind of see if we're all on the same page and if we're not, and so forth. Does that sound okay for everyone?
That's a great idea.
Any other questions or concerns? Several people have to go. Sue has to go. I have to go. Anybody else? Any pressing questions or concerns? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to adjourn, and I'll get you a survey out in the next 7 to 10 days. Dylan, you may have to remind me. 7 to 10 days.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank y'all so much. Non-debatable motion. Nice meeting all of you, and hopefully we'll get to spend a little bit more time together, those that I don't know. Thank y'all so much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, bye-bye.